Welcome back to the channel, guys. Right, I know I said I wasn't going to break down the Penguin week by week, but after watching episode 2, I can't help it, guys. We're going to have to break this stuff down. I've got some theories and thoughts, some theories that I haven't seen online anywhere else, so this is why I feel so compelled to get this stuff down. But anyway, we'll recap the episode, then we'll go through some of my thoughts and theories about the episode. Episode 2, named Inside Man. We start off the episode with Sophia Falcone getting therapy. We see her therapist, Dr. Julian Rush. We learn a couple of things in this intro. One, Sophia Falcone has definitely got some PTSD. Now, I don't know if this is from the killing that she's done in the past, or is this to do with just her time in Arkham Asylum, and is this sort of fucked her up a little bit? We see she's very, very traumatized by the whole situation. We see in this flashback, she's obviously in the Arkham get-up that we see Joker and the Riddler both in the Batman. We do see some scars around her neck that is obviously, I think, being caused by herself. We see her nails that have got blood underneath the nails. This is definitely self-inflicted, which more or less shows that this person is severely mentally ill. But it's quite interesting, I find. I think this show is going to be the origin story of Penguin becoming the kingpin of Gotham, but I also think this is going to be somewhat of an origin story for Sophia Falcone becoming the Hangman, taking that moniker literally. I know she's been called it throughout the show so far, but I think she will adopt that moniker going forward. Who knows? She might die at the end of this season. We get a scene in Blackgate Prison with the Penguin and Clancy Brown's Salvatore Maroni. In the last episode, we've seen that Penguin was trying to bargain a little bit with Salvatore Maroni. In this episode, you can clearly see that he's wearing the ring that Alberto had in the first episode. I think this is a clear sign that, Salvatore Maroni has thought about what the Penguin said in that first episode, and he's going to, take the fall for Alberto Falcone's death, which will take some heat off the Penguin. In this scene in Blackgate Prison, we also get a reconfirmation that they're going to intercept these drops, the drugs that's been in the Batman and also this series so far now. The drops are getting transferred somewhere from Gotham's Bay to Robbinsville, they say, and the plan is for Penguin and Salvatore Maroni's gang to intercept this vehicle halfway through to its destination. Obviously, when the interception happens with the drugs, it doesn't really go to plan. As for Oz, he was supposed to be in the car following the drugs, but he ends up being in the van that has all the drugs in it. So he has to do some quick thinking, our Oz. Then we're back at Falcone's estate, where we are properly introduced to Luca Falcone, who has took on the family business from Carmine Falcone. In this scene, we see Oz getting his head shredded by the other mobsters because the plan's gone to shit, the drugs have been stolen. We also see in this sequence that Sophia Falcone is definitely under Luca Falcone, and that doesn't sit right with Oz. Now, I think Oz has got a bigger all scheme, bigger all plan when it comes to this, but you can see the mind games start to set in here, which Oz is playing with Sophia Falcone. You can see that he's, you should be the head of the Falcone business. Sophia is not 100% convinced yet, but she will be by the end of the episode. I like to see that Oz is scheming in this show, definitely doing a lot of that. And I don't really know what Oz's end goal is with getting Sophia Falcone the head of the family. I'm not sure if he feels like he can get something over on Sophia. I'm yet to see where this is going to go. Then we get a scene where Sophia is being transported and she's listening to the Gotham radio. I really like this scene because you see in the background of one of these shots, that scene from the Batman, which shows Gotham City all lit up. We do see that in the far background of one of the shots here. What I found interesting about this scene is that we learn a few things about Sophia. We hear on the radio that Sophia is confirmed to have killed 7 women. They say even maybe more than that. We just don't know. It's not being confirmed yet. Who are these 7 women? It's something that I'm interested to know. Was it really Sophia that killed her, or was it Carmine and she just took the fall for it? These are all questions that have been raised in this episode, and I would like to be answered somewhere down the line. I'm sure they will be. The other thing that I find interesting about this scene in the car is that we learned that crime in Gotham City has went up by 42%, which lines up directly with the end of The Batman, when Bruce Wayne, Batman, is talking about how Gotham will get worse before it gets better. I like that they match that detail up together. After the drugs have been intercepted and we see Oz getting grilled by the Falcone mobsters, we see Oz throw a little bit of an after party, invites Victor and some working girls round, including Eve Karlo, which we'll get to in a little bit. We see Victor talking to one of the working girls here, and she asks Victor where he's from. He says Queensville, which she then replies with, "Oh yeah, I've heard that is a proper no man's land at the moment," which is just gratifying for a lot of us Batman fans who were sort of at the end of The Batman when the Riddler has blown up the seafront. It does sort of give us that no man's land sort of vibe. Then we are introduced to Marcus Wise, who Sophia goes to see. Yeah, this guy is like a drophead. He's a crooked cop that used to work for, obviously, the police force, but also Carmine Falcone. And I like this bit because there's a line of dialogue where he says half of the police force worked with Carmine Falcone. It just solidifies how corrupt the police force were in The Batman and have been for years by the sounds of it. But Sophia is able to manipulate this dirty cop into doing some work for her, finding out who the inside man was, about the bodged job earlier on in the episode with the drops and stuff. She easily manages to convince him because he is a drophead, and she gives him like a big bag of drops and a load of cash. So he goes off to try and find out who this inside man is, who the rat is working for Salvatore Maroni. In my head, I can't lie, I was sort of hoping this was going to be Bullock or Eckhart from Batman 1989, just as like a little nod. Then we get a scene with Oz's mother, whose dementia is clearly getting worse. Yet we can tell in this episode and by this particular scene that Oz does not want to put his mum into a home. I think this has got something to do with Oz wanting to, you know, become the kingpin of Gotham and have all this stuff, have the big nice house. Then he can afford to take care of his mother properly. After the scene with the Penguin's mother, we are then in Alberto Falcone's funeral. You know, the Penguin Oscorp, he's got some dirt on one of the Falcone mobsters that's working for the family. He's trying to pin all his dirty work on this particular guy in the Falcone family. You can see almost gives this evidence, this blackmail evidence, to Luca Falcone, the head of the family at the moment. He doesn't really care about Penguin and sort of fobs him off in this scene. That is definitely going to come back later on in the series. But later on, we see more mind games with the Penguin and Sophia Falcone. You know, he's reiterating the fact that he thinks that she should be the mob boss of the family, the Falcone crime lord. Then later on, after Alberto Falcone's funeral, we are at the Falcone estate having a little after party for the funeral. And in this, we see that our crooked cop, Marcus Wise, has actually managed to find someone who was on the bodge job from earlier on, but he's not coherent, he's not with it at the moment, he's been hooked on morphine, so they're trying to wait for him to wake up. However, Penguin intercepts this and manages to kill this bloke before he can spill any beans about who the inside man is. In this scene, we sort of see that Penguin Oscorp is willing to do anything. You know, he has no hesitation about killing this guy who may dob him in it to Sophia Falcone. After they find out that, you know, this informant, this guy who they were going to find out who the inside man is, who the rat was, has been stabbed to death, they check everyone in the house for knives and whatnot. And we get this excellent scene where Oz gets in a fight with this guy who he's trying to pin all this shit on. And he sort of swaps the knife into Sophia's head poncho guard, who takes the fall for it in a pretty gnarly way. Yeah, Luca Falcone's there, gets his gun out and just kills the guy straight up. Leaves Sophia in a bit of a shocked state. And at the end of this episode, we finally get Sophia Falcone giving in to what Oz has been saying throughout the episode about taking over the family business. And I think she's going to make a play for this power vacuum that has been left from the Batman. So that was episode 2. I absolutely loved it. This show is amazing. Colin Farrell is just owning this role. I think now with episode 2, I can finally confirm that this is definitely the best iteration of the Penguin I've seen. Now, I love Danny DeVito's Penguin, but that suited that take for that universe. In this, we're dealing with something realistic here, and I think Colin Farrell is just owning this role. But the main reason why I sort of wanted to make this episode and this little breakdown is because in my last sort of theories and thoughts that we did about episode 1, I mentioned Eve Karlo, and obviously we went into it on that episode. There is some connection with Clayface there. I thought that Eve Karlo maybe was going to be related to Basil Karlo, and that was going to be a reveal later on down the line in the series. However, after watching episode 2, and when we see the scene in the after party involving Oz, Victor, and the working girls, including Eve Karlo, there's a few little looks that Eve Karlo gives to Oz and a few questions that Eve asks that had me wondering. Now, I'm going to come out and say that I don't think Eve Karlo is related to a future Clayface in some way. I think Eve Karlo is our future Clayface. My theory is that she's a long-term undercover police officer that's been working as a working girl just so she's got her ear to the ground for the police. You know, the entire police force can't be corrupt, but I could believe someone in the police force being tasked with an undercover job to be a prostitute later on down the line so they can, you know, keep their fingers in the pies of the criminal underworld. Why this leads me to believe that she's actually playing Clayface is because if anyone remembers the Batman 04 animated series, which was amazing, I think it's highly underrated and highly underappreciated for giving us some real new fresh takes on Batman's rogues gallery. I highly recommend that series. One of the rogues gallery in that series was Clayface, and his arc was amazing in that show. He was a detective. He was a police officer before he turned into Clayface, and he was actually called Ethan Bennett. So yeah, he didn't have any name relation to Karlo, not Basil Karlo, Eve Karlo. That wasn't a thing in the 04 series. Now, if it comes to fruition that Eve Karlo is an undercover police officer, I'll be betting big money on this one that she does end up becoming a version of Clayface. Now, I could be way off here, and I could be, you know, throwing out some serious theories that mean absolutely nothing here. I'm just trying to connect the dots a little bit. I am really reaching with the heavens for that one. It's just a theory. I didn't actually realize that Eve Karlo, played by Carmen Jogo, was interviewed on the red carpet just prior, and one of the interviewers actually asked her, have you got any sort of connection with Clayface? And she just sort of dismissed it a little bit and said there's some really good speculation out there and whatnot, but she didn't really elaborate much on it. I wasn't aware of this conversation on my last episode. I thought it was being really clever, but obviously not. She's just asking questions that's raising suspicions for me about, are you a police officer? Because you want to know a lot here, but I could be mistaken. Anyway, guys, that's been my thoughts and theories on episode 2. Really enjoying this show so far. Can't wait for episode 3. Apparently, episode 3 is a bit of a banger from what I've heard. And I will be back next week after the episode is finished with some more thoughts and theories about where this is going. But don't worry, guys, I'll still be doing a spoiler talk at the end of this series with Paul Tams, where we'll break all this down and we'll get into some theories about the Batman Part 2. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got time for now. Until next time, I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.